Hey, what is up, guys? It is week 3 of me building my language learning startup, READINGFLO. And in this week, I spent some time working on a dictionary. So now you can actually translate words to English from whatever the target language that you're using right now. So an example of this is here when you click on read a story, you'll see that you'll have highlighted words now. And when you click on a certain word, let's say this one, it'll give you the English translation. So you can see you can do it for multiple different words. This one will say was, this one will say bank. And this kind of setup is like what Amazon Kindle does. And a lot of dictionary apps or any app that does some kind of translation kind of uses a very similar setup. So I kind of want to talk about the behind the scenes of what exactly I'm doing and how I'm kind of mitigating some issues like behind the scenes and stuff like that, and how to make this feature super fast as well. So I'll go over to here and I'll talk about, yeah, this is kind of something that Amazon Kindle uses and how dictionaries work in general across like different applications and stuff. But the idea is that you pretty much just want to get some word and translate it. So if you have some app, let's say in our case it's READINGFLO, we will just send to Google Translate the word that we want to translate, and Google Translate will just translate that word back. And this all happens behind the scenes actually in our application. And this is like the simplest like way to do this, to actually have some kind of a dictionary functionality. It's where you just translate pretty much everything. And the benefit is that it's super simple. Like you just make one call to say translate some word, and then you get that call back and just show it to the user. The biggest drawbacks here is that it's going to be super slow. It'll take at least 1 second of lag. Like when the person clicks on a certain word to get translated, it'll at least take 1 second to actually come back with some certain word. It might take longer. It depends on if Google Translate can translate like fast enough. And it'll be just a bad user experience. Like people will just be clicking each word. And I'm sure like people don't want to like sit there every like 1 second after translating each word and stuff like that. And the thing is that long term, like READINGFLO should be used for like multiple different languages. So if you just take 10 languages with 100K words in each language, it'll be a huge cost because you'll be calling this Google Translate like API like lots of times. So it'll amount to like a huge cost, at least for the application. So one way I thought about mitigating this is by just simply having READINGFLO just translate some word. It'll do the normal Google Translate kind of flow, but then I'll just save this word to my database, to some kind of a database or something that stores the translations for these words. So it'll be this one. Let's say we have the Spanish word here, which is our source, and the target word is the word that it's being translated to. So in this case, it will be translated to English. And in this case, every time the like somebody wants to actually translate some word, let's say anywhere on the app, it will first check to see, is it in my database? And then if it's not in my database, it'll follow this flow where it'll go to translate a certain word and then save that into that database for later use. And what's really nice about this is that you get super fast translations, at least faster than the previous approach. You'll shave off like half of a second. So it'll just only take half of a second instead of a full second every time you want to translate a word. And that'll only happen for words that you've already seen. So that the words that are actually inside this database that have already been translated before by certain users. So this lowers the cost significantly, which is really nice. It's faster for the like the actual user who's using the app, which is also pretty nice. But what will happen is that for people who are just, like using the app for the first time, or really the first time users of your app, you'll have a bunch of people do lots of translations at the very beginning, especially when your language is brand new and you don't have this database full of all those translations that you've done. And pretty much what you'll be doing is you'll be translating every word up until some certain point. But then what will happen is that you'll cover maybe, let's say, 90% of words in a language, and you'll mainly be just grabbing words from this database, which is pretty nice. And this will happen at like some point. There will be some convergence point or whatever that you'll hit where you won't have to actually go to translate every word by hand anymore. This is still pretty nice, but it's still a bad user experience, especially for in the very beginning when you actually let's say, onboard some new language, or when your database doesn't really have all those translated words, which is going to happen in the very beginning. So it's still not a very good user experience at the very beginning, but it's still better, like in terms of cost, and you get better translation, faster translations in the long run. So what I did is I started doing a little bit of digging around about like kind of how like the Kindle does it, or kind of how like words in languages are kind of set up. And I came to this realization where there's a law called Zipf's law, where it says that around 90 to 95% of all written text is composed of the most common 3,000 to 5,000 words in a language. So this is a huge realization, because you can pretty much just store these 3 to 5,000 words, since they're super common, right? You can pre-compute them or pre-translate them and just store them in some kind of file. So that way you can just like grab those 90 to 95% of words that are already pretty common in any language. You can just grab them right away. So this will cover 90+% of cases for you having to translate some kind of word, which is really nice. And what that would look like, and this is kind of what I'm doing right now in READINGFLO, what I actually have implemented, is I have a little bit of a combination of things. So what I'm doing is, first off, I'll go ahead and I'll have a dictionary file that has the 5,000 most commonly used words in a language. In this case, it will be Spanish. And in this dictionary file, it'll just have a straight mapping where it'll have some word in English and it'll just get mapped to some word in Spanish, or vice versa, right? And first, I'll go ahead and check to see if the word that the person wants to translate is a super commonly used word. And 90 to 95% of the cases will be, you'll end up finding that value inside of this dictionary file, which is pretty nice. You'll get the translated word like instantaneously. It'll be like less than 10 milliseconds for the user, which is really nice. It's super performant and stuff. If that doesn't happen, we'll go ahead and check our database, which we had from before, to see if we have any of these translated words we did by hand. And this is also performant as well, because this will, you don't have to do an actual manual translation, but you'll check for this word in this database to see if it's there. And if it's not there, then we have to do the actual translation for the word, and we'll go to translate the word here. This will come back with the word. The user will get the actual word that they wanted. And at the very end, we'll save this to our database here, so that way we can kind of offload having to go to Google Translate to translate every single word. And so in this case, 90% of cases will be hit by this dictionary file, which is pretty nice. And the last 10% of cases will be covered by our database at some point. Maybe in the very beginning it won't be, but after you translate all those words, you'll get all those 10% of words here inside this database. And what are the benefits here? What you'll have is you'll have super fast translations for common words because of this dictionary file. You'll have super low cost as well, because only uncommon words are actually translated. So it's going to be like 10% of words will actually be translated here, and afterwards they'll be all set in your database, which is pretty like semi-performant, which is pretty nice. These are the biggest benefits, and this is kind of what I've implemented right now in READINGFLO, which is pretty nice. I didn't think that having to implement like a dictionary would have been like this kind of complicated, but it's pretty cool. I feel like this is also what Amazon Kindle does, and kind of all these other dictionary kind of apps do. They usually have some kind of a file, and they have kind of this layered approach where it's different layers of checking for a certain word. The only big thing that's like a disadvantage of this setup is that it is definitely more complex. So you have definitely a more complex setup. You can see in the very beginning it was just only kind of 2 components, but here you have kind of more components here, which means that there could be more kind of like really weird errors that can happen, or one-off issues. But this is definitely the more performant like kind of solution. And the only other drawback is that once this database kind of fills up with a bunch of words, you probably want to offload this into your dictionary file. So actually have something that comes back to store those words like that are inside this dictionary. You probably want to offload them into your dictionary file so that way they can be part of your most commonly used words. So that way you don't have to actually go to your database at all. This can be even like some optimization you could do in the long term. But as of right now, I think this is pretty good and it's pretty fast, at least for people who are using it. And you can see when I go to the application, when I actually touch a word, it's almost instantaneous. Like you'll get the actual translation. And you'll see here, this is where there might have been some kind of like a translation there, but you can see for a lot of words like this one is really fast. Let's say this one is really fast as well. Bio, you can see that this one is doing the translation and then it comes back within like a second or two, which is pretty nice. Pretty cool solution, and it was pretty interesting kind of like looking up how to actually solve this kind of issue, especially because I'm building this out from scratch and kind of doing my own implementation. But yeah, let me know if you guys like this kind of a discussion, if you guys want me to do more stuff like this. I do have some more features coming up, especially when it comes to the different libraries that I want to add. I want to add different libraries that are more premium and that have more of like a Netflix kind of carousel style setup, as compared to this where it's more it's just kind of just text pretty much. I want to add actually like graphics and stuff like that. So that's going to be kind of more future features. But if you guys do like this more of a technical kind of style talk, let me know in the comment section below. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about READINGFLO as well. I'll have all the links for READINGFLO in the description box. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.